So Wilson has this showdown with Henry Cabot Lodge and the Republicans. And he realizes, you know what, I'm probably not going to win in Washington, D.C., so I got to take the message to the voters. Much like, William Jennings Bryan took, his message out to so many people in the 1896 election. Now, this is not an election, but he's not trying to get anything, get a candidate elected. But what he is trying to do is get his idea to the American people, who will then impress it upon their, again, their senators. So against his doctor and his second wife's orders, he's going to leave by railroad to the Midwest and the West Coast. His goal is to visit 29 cities and deliver 40 speeches on behalf of the treaty. Now, he's not necessarily in good health anyway, but he covers 10,000 miles in 22 days, gives 32 major speeches. But after one speech in particular in Pueblo, Colorado, he collapses with debilitating headaches, and he has to basically be taken back to D.C. and what people are pretty much calling the funeral train. Now, he doesn't die, but he's pretty much incapacitated at that point. Now, Wilson is effectively just cut off from everybody. He's incapacitated, he's become even more stubborn, and in many ways, the ball is really in Henry Cabot Lodge's court. And so he's going to put forth 14 changes, in essence, like the 14 reservations that he has as a result of, wanting to get the Treaty of Versailles changed. Again, remember, he's a reservationist. He's okay with changes that are going to lessen America's involvement in it, but he's not totally adverse to it. Now, what you've got here is something very weird, because Wilson is going to tell his supporters, the Democrats, to reject Henry Cabot Lodge's amended version of the treaty. So in this case, they vote against it. So now you're going to have the amended version that is rejected, and then they're going to vote after that on the unamended version, the actual treaty without the reservations, and that gets rejected. So in the end, the Treaty of Versailles is actually rejected by the U.S. Senate, even though Woodrow Wilson had been a main player in writing it in Paris. Now, what's important to realize, since the United States didn't ratify the Treaty of Versailles, and since it did not join the League of Nations, which again was Woodrow Wilson's baby, there are major consequences. With Great Britain and France really too exhausted and too timid and weak to keep Germany down, a dangerous power vacuum is going to emerge. And into that, Adolf Hitler and the Nazis are going to develop in the 1920s and the 1930s. And America, not being part of the League of Nations, is not going to be able to play a major role in stopping it. In the end, when we look back at what had happened in the war, it destroyed this sort of old Europe, not only the cities and the people and the economy and four grand empires, but really as its self-image as the center of civilized Western culture. And the peace that came as a result of the war didn't bring stability. Many people in Germany and Austria believed that they were victims of a really punitive peace, and they wanted revenge. And we're going to, of course, see that with what happens with Hitler. At the same time, we saw that the war had helped bring about the end of Tsar Nicholas and the rise of the Bolsheviks. And then by 1922, we're going to really see the USSR fully emerge. And of course, that is going to give rise to tension that is going to be with the Soviet Union, and then we're going to be sort of allied with the Soviet Union for parts of World War II, and then of course the Cold War from the end of World War II all the way to the 1990s. Now, in America, it's a different story, because remember, America wasn't involved in terms of that many men, and it really wasn't involved on our land. So America emerges as this true world power. The American economy comes out largely unscathed, and you have bankers and corporations who had been, not only helping fund what had been going on, but they're more than willing to step into this vacuum created by the destruction of major European economies. And in many ways, World War I sort of fully puts the United States on the map to be the lead dog. And what's going to be interesting is, in the 1920s, this lead dog is going to choose to be very isolationist, which, again, we're going to talk about in the 1920s, and then as we lead into the effects of what is going to ultimately lead to World War II.